Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well, and I really hope that you've got a chance to process the result and let all that has happened on the result day sink in. After this, I'm sure there are a lot of questions in your mind on what next. Should we give one group, both groups? Should we defer our attempt? Should we take new lectures, new books? If we want to study on our own, how do we manage it? A lot of things, and we are going to discuss all of them in today's video. So I would request you to kind of watch this till the end, because this is going to be very helpful for your Jan 26 preparations. Now, first of all, before we go into the specifics, I would want you to first accept what has happened. It may be fair, it may be unfair, but accept what has happened. Have what we say is a learner's mindset and try to take a forward-looking approach. I know it's easier said than done, but you're not going to be able to change the result by kind of putting the blame on maybe the institute's checking or something. It is best if you kind of accept this and try to take corrective actions. And what are the corrective actions? In my understanding, usually there are three specific areas where students need to kind of work upon. First is if you think that you have some conceptual gap, that is, there were certain, in terms of questions like consolidation, financial instruments, derivatives, forex, where you were blanking out in a question, you did not know how to proceed further. It is one story that you kind of know how to solve, but you made a silly mistake. Second is you are blanking out, in which case there is probably a conceptual gap on which there's a different way to work around. Second, you knew what to write, but you had relatively lesser time to complete because, well, the paper 3 hours you did not manage to complete. So your writing speed is the culprit. Or third, you knew you had the time, but probably you made a lot of silly mistakes. Very common. A lot of your marks are like in cricket, you have drop catches, something like that. You have a silly mistake where you possibly try to do everything, but your calculator does something else, you copy something else, and you kind of mess up over there. So broadly, these are the three major areas where students need to work upon, and you can try to find which or more than one areas are a culprit for you. And accepting that what has happened and trying to work on it. And trust me, there have been ample examples of people in the September, in the May, in the other exams where they've kind of use this opportunity to kind of bounce back, and that is a story for you, for your ages. It is your perseverance, it is your grit, and it will shine out 100%. But for that, you just have 60 days, 2 months of hard work, and I'm sure you are going to make it. So first of all, the question is, should we give 2 groups, should we give 1 group? Well, again, the rule of thumb that I typically apply is, if you have 2 groups which are remaining and your gap from the passing is more than 10%, so you have scored less than 270 for example, it's a little difficult in 60 days time to cover that gap. I'm not saying that it is not possible, it is very much possible, but as a broad rule, well, if you have 60 days, 6 subjects, on an average 10 days per subject, 2 revisions, that leaves you with hardly 5 to 6 days for 1 revision. Not generally enough to kind of cover or smoothen your rough edges. So I would say, if that is the case, you can focus on single group. Again, that is a thumb rule. You can decide based on your understanding. And if you are quite close, maybe around 280s, 290s, etc., then you are very close, and you can take a real shot at both groups for your January 26. On the question of deferring the attempt to May 26, I, for one, if I were at your place, I would not think about that. My decision point would be, I would either give 1 group or 2 groups. Think once, focus, stand my decision, and then don't self-doubt or think on whether I've done correct or not. Deferring it to May 26 almost is not a right way, because if you're not as well prepared, you will think that I'll defer it to September 26, and that loop never ends. And if Jan 26 is an easier paper, it has good passing, you will kind of constantly in your May 26, why did I not give? It is a very difficult thing to wrap around, and hence, if possible, at least give 1 group in Jan 26 rather than deferring it blindly to the May 26 paper. Okay. Secondly, a question would be that, well, how do I resume back? How do I start? Generally, there would be revision videos for your respective subjects. Like for example, for FR, we will have on our YouTube channel a playlist for all the revision videos, for all chapters, for AFM, for inter, advanced accounting. This is for all the chapters, and I'm sure wherever you have referred, whichever faculty you will have similar revision videos for everything. So the way you kind of get back into momentum is trying to first quickly glance through the revision video for a subject that you are starting, that you are kind of at speed, and hence you get into the momentum. Even later when you are preparing, it is helpful if you kind of watch those topics like derivatives or financial instruments where you need some help in getting kind of a launch pad. So can I refer revision videos? Yes, our revision videos are updated and you can just refer them. And what about the amendments? Now for the amendments, there are no amendments per se for the January 26 exam as compared to the exam that you have given. However, Institute has keeps on adding questions in the RTP, MTP or the previous year questions. So we have tried to share the amendment PDF, and the details would be there, for example, on your drive. I mean, if you want, we can share that separately on the Telegram channel as well. So in any of the batches, as you can see, you will have a separate folder for amendment. In that you can find the PDF, and wherever applicable, we have tried to give a few videos as well if there are certain complex areas. So you can refer those easily, and that will really help you in your preparation. Now on the question on whether I should opt for new lectures or new books, it completely depends. However, the decision should be based on, when we discussed the beginning, there are three culprits in your overall preparation. First is there is a conceptual gap. Second is writing practice, and third is silly mistakes. If you feel that there was a conceptual gap, you did not feel the depth when you were doing, let us say, a foreign exchange or derivatives or a consolidation or a financial instrument, you felt that there were certain selective questions you were doing and that was about it. You did not have the overall grip. I would say that taking probably some lecture would be helpful to at least strengthen your conceptual gap. But if you are kind of struggling in just the solving or the writing practice, it is best if you take more mock tests and you give more mock tests, so that first your writing test practice is also resolved, and secondly your silly mistakes can also be countered. And the way you counter the silly mistake is you try to be present in the sum in the moment that you are solving. You don't try to jump into the other questions that you might have seen in your reading time, because that is when the silly mistake happens. When you're questioning what I did in the earlier question, was it correct, or how do I address the next question, that is when you're not in the moment and you kind of write down a wrong number and everything goes for a toss. So ensure you try to be in the moment when possible and try to address it. Now over here, in case you kind of are thinking of the lectures, and I mean, we'll try to put a separate video for this, but if I can just kind of run you through quickly in terms of batches, we have two specific batches. I mean, there are three batches. There's a regular batch which you don't have enough time to cover, so I'm not even putting it over here. Second is the exam oriented batch for both FR, AFM as well as inter advanced accounts, and there is what we used to earlier call the refresher batch, or that is a batch which is meant for last minute preparation. So over here we have given the number of hours which are there. I think in AFM you have around 120 hours over here. So for FR and for AFM we have the hours, and what I would suggest for you is, in case you have a conceptual gap and you are giving one group in January, if you are giving two groups, then you don't have enough time for the exam oriented batch, then maybe the last minute batch is a batch which is suitable. In this last minute refresher batch, we have covered all concepts and we have done all the important or last day revision sums. To be honest, if you sit with just these sums and give the exam, that is also sufficient. However, if you want an exhaustive coverage of all the questions, then in the exam oriented batch we have done all the questions and all the sums, so that will be helpful for you. But again, because it has around 200 odd hours, I would say that if you are giving both groups, it is a little challenging for you to cover FR or AFM over here. But if you want complete depth, you can go over here. In fact, one of our recent rank holders, AIR 8, he even in his regular preparation took the exam oriented batch, and for a first time reader, he kind of managed to even get a rank over here, and there were multiple students who could kind of crack this. So this is full coverage. For both concept level, there will be full coverage, but in terms of questions, all the important or last day revision questions are done, and that too in FR, that is 400, 450 plus questions. In AFM, that is 200 plus questions, which is done in the last minute batch properly. And in the exam oriented batch, all the, I think, 900 odd, 1000 odd questions for FR and the 500, 600 odd questions for AFM are fully solved and discussed. So details for this are there on the website. You can review that, and in case it helps you, you can kind of decide on that. So these are the two batches. We'll put a separate video for that as well in case that kind of helps. And in terms of the overall strategy, what should you kind of do? When you look at the overall strategy, there would be no rocket science over here. To be honest, earlier there were various permutations and combinations. Now, with hardly 2 months to be precise, there would be broadly, if you are giving both groups, well, with 60 days, you are left with 10 days a paper average. Maybe something like an FR may take slightly more, so something like IDT may take slightly less. However, you have 10 days per paper, and if you are giving a single group, you have approximately 20 days a paper. Now, at this level, you have to target 2 revisions, because just reading it once will not kind of, whether you are giving both groups or a single group, doing 2 revisions in this time is imperative. So maybe either ways, when you're looking, you will take 60% of your time for the first revision, say 40% of the time in the second revision. So if you're giving both groups 6 plus 4 on an average, certain areas would have more or less weightage, but nevertheless, on an average, whatever you decide, 60-40%. In case of a single group, you have 20 days, so that is around 12 days and 8 days on a paper. Maybe for something like financial reporting, you will take maybe a little more, let's say 14 odd days. So in audit, you might need a little less. Maybe instead of 10 days for a first revision, can get done in even 8 to 9 days. So basically, you will tweak around that, but there's no other magic trick at all. So you will try to do 2 revisions and try to write the mock test after every revision. So write 1 full mock test after your first revision, and if time permits, 1 full mock test after the second revision as well. That would be the ideal scenario, where you are doing 2 revisions, splitting it cleanly, divided by 6, the number of days, 60-40 within the time gap for each of the revisions. And if you think that you will be able to manage both the groups with this kind of time, well, then you can sit for both groups. Otherwise, you can give a single group. If you are close to the 300 mark, let's say you are about 270, I would say that it is very much achievable that you give both groups and manage. Otherwise, doing single group is a much prudent strategy, but procrastination and thinking about the right strategy is where you will kind of get stuck. You will not, the right strategy is opening your books, sitting in front of them and turning the pages as fast as possible. So that should be your core goal. Focus most importantly, try to get regular in terms of your study pattern. Don't try to cut off the noise. Like for example, there is this very interesting video which has come where Amol Muzumdar, the coach of the Indian women's cricket team, is telling in the finals that for the next 7 hours, you cut out all the noise that is there. Just focus on the game, and you saw India won the World Cup, and the World Cup is for you. Your trophy is standing for you in Jan 26. Try to cut out all the noise that is there around you. There will be a lot of self-doubt, there will be a lot of questions, there will be a lot of things which will try to bog you down. It's easier said than done, but it is a skill. If you are able to cut out that noise, trust me, nothing stands between you and the prefix that you are looking at. So ensure that you probably start as soon as possible. Again, you have 60 odd days approximately before your exams, and every day is like a bonus for you. And the faster you get into your mold of getting back to studies and going into the rhythm is better. The first 3-4 days might be difficult. Whenever you kind of think that you are going off track, try to get your focus back. Try to tell yourself no, put a note or a sticky note somewhere that you will try to remain focused on what is there in front of you and not try to think back. I'm telling you, it's easier said than done. There will be times where you will reflect, but the more you try to be in the present, in the question, in the page, in the concept that you are doing, it will become a habit in a matter of a few days. And trust me, after Jan 26, you will be a much more stronger, and a much more confident chartered accountant. Okay, so I'll leave you at that. If you have any queries, please put that in the comment box. If you believe in manifestation, you even write yourself that I will clear my, I will be a CA in Jan 26, and you come back. There have been so many students who have come back and said that I manifested and this happened, and hopefully you will also do that. Okay, so all the prayers, good wishes and good luck with you. Bye-bye and take care.